Hello, everybody. Hello, it's Lisa Duerre, and I want to tell you I'm excited, but it's more than excited. I'm honored. I am honored with today's guest. I had the luxury, the honor, I was so inspired by meeting with Clarissa Kristjansson a while back that I invited her to be my first guest on this podcast because here's the deal. Clarissa speaks it like it is, and she and I had such a profound conversation about leadership and burnout and being a female leader, as well as we talked about menopause, we talked about feelings. And let me tell you something, all that matters right now. When we look at what's happening in today's world in this pandemic, election year, racial divide, so much going on with distance learning at home. Everything's confusing. And so I invited Clarissa here today to talk about how to really get to the root of this so you can live your best life. And as leaders, you can actually be leaders worth following, getting amazing results with high performing teams and being present for the moments that matter because everybody's underwater right now. So let me tell you about Clarissa and we'll jump right into it. So Clarissa, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm so thrilled to be here. I'm so delighted that I'm Lisa's first guest. I'm like, whoa.
I know, I'm so thrilled. So let me give the formal introduction about your amazingness. So Clarissa is a midlife menopause coach. She's a mentor, speaker. She is a podcast host, as I've told you. She supports professional women through a complete, and I want to say complete because this is important, peeps, complete mind, body, holistic approach to thriving through change, which we're all going through right now, and be ready to embrace their second spring with zest and joy. I want to say something about Clarissa. She oozes zest and joy, and she knows about burnout, and she knows about the complexities of life. So, Clarissa, welcome. Welcome to Ctrl+Alt+Delete.
I am thrilled to be here. Ctrl+Alt+Delete is about what some of us would like this year to be.
Exactly. Let's reboot. Let's reboot mind, body, spirit, limiting mindset, beliefs, some of the stories we tell ourselves, and honestly, things we're blaming stuff on. So one of the things I want to, just say right away, I have so much data right now that I've been just talking about it in all of the lives I do around the McKinsey report about women at work. And then I had another mental health report by KFF, and the pull through, I want to talk to you about a little bit, your perspective on people are experiencing anxiety over layoffs. They are burning out. They are worried about mental health, childcare, distance learning, physical and mental health of loved ones they can't see or be with, as well as financial insecurity. Now, that's out of McKinsey, and that's the Women at Work report. And then the KFF report about mental health, what just blew my mind in March, 32% of people said they were struggling with sleep disruptions, poor appetite or overeating, headaches, stomach aches. They were having increased alcohol or drug use, as well as losing their temper quite easily, and chronic conditions were worsening. That was in March. 32% said they had this going on. In August, 53% of the respondents said they have one or more of those symptoms. Yeah. So I'm not here to depress anybody today. I'm here to wake us up, right? And that's why Clarissa's here. So Clarissa, right off the bat, like, what's your reaction to that data? Do you agree? Are you seeing that in your world?
I'm seeing that everywhere, right? So, I mean, I live in the country of no lockdown. So, just take that one in, but there's still been a slowdown. And I am not surprised because we are under so much stress and pressure that data is just a flow through of exactly where we are. I mean, I would expect us to feel like that. We're in a constant state of fight flight. So we feel anxious. We think there's not going to be anything else left to eat. We've got a reptilian brain. So of course we chow down on as much sugar as we can and hold on and store all that fat in the body, put on weight. And we're concerned because we don't know what's happening. We've stepped into no man's land. And that's a very scary place for any human to be. And everything changes. No clear direction from leaders, whether they're in corporate or they're out in the political world. And we're left roller coastering around here. So unfortunately, I'd read that McKinsey report too, and it doesn't make great reading for women's futures and women leaders right now.
Yeah. what I want to tap into, what you just said, is this roller coaster. So I think about the CEOs listening in, the board members, the venture capitalists, the senior vice presidents and GMs, right? They're in the unknown territory too, and they're trying to steer this ship. Now, the beautiful thing about tech is we're always in the unknown. Like, that's the truth, right? Innovation after innovation. I've been in the dot-com bust and boom. I've been through the financial crisis. I've led through SARS and swine flu. So it's not as if this hasn't happened in some way or shape before. What I'm noticing with these leaders, though, is it's compounded, like you said, and the isolation and, having to scramble for everyone to be remote and loss of control. There's so much opportunity in this. And yet, I think the initial reaction, like you said, I love what you said, like, we don't know where the next meal's coming from, so we're going to hoard. What are you seeing, and what guidance are you giving leaders these days when they're looking at leading teams and businesses and taking a look at just in the future how to navigate what you're calling this roller coaster, which I have such a visual on that. I'm going to hold on to that while you're talking.
Do you know, I think we have to somehow acknowledge that as leaders, we don't know a little bit about what's happening. We need to have more vulnerability. If we act as if we know, and then we don't know and things go wrong, we're breaking trust with the people who work for us. And right now, people need anchors to hold on to, whether they're humans or their processes, so that there's some clarity. So my request for leaders is, if you don't know, put your hand up and say, I don't know, I'm doing my best. Can you help me? Because we all understand to support each other. And we're breaking down those barriers that are often there between a leader and the people they're meant to lead.
Yes, one of the things that I really am excited about, and this is how I've been my entire career, is this whole concept of the collective wisdom is so much more powerful than, one expert. I used to talk about this all the time for succession planning of the leaders. I would talk about it when you hire, varying strengths and expertise. And it's such an opportunity to tap into the collective wisdom. And for a leader to say, here's what I know, this you can count on, and here's the areas I don't know. And then invite people into, what are your thoughts, as well as what are your needs with what I know today? What are your needs in this environment? Like, that alone is a game changer. And talk about psychological trust, about being real, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot more humanity needs to come in. I mean, I think that's been missing in corporate. Having spent 28 years in corporate, the best leaders are the most human leaders. They know your name, they ask you how you are, and they recognize that we have work, but we also have a life, and life right now is very complicated. Even if we're turning up for our Zoom calls, people are juggling with a lot. I mean, the McKinsey report brings that out, that women in particular have taken on 3 hours extra of housework and caregiving duties. That's massive. And how are leaders going to meet that, understand that, and ask, what can I do to help you? What can we as a corporation, as a business, do to help this be easier for you?
Yes. Yeah. I'll say this, and then I'm going to ask you a couple of really juicy questions. I got an email response the other day, and out of office, just a generic one that said, hey, I got your email, and between this time and this time, I'm offline every day. I'll be back here. I'll get back to you. And my heart just leapt with joy for this leader who's in an environment where that's accepted, because that meant something was talked about, which is, here's the time you're not going to get me, whether that's because there's laundry going on or distance learning or yoga for mental health, food prep, who knows, but that hour is now sacred and everybody knows. And that was so refreshing to me to see that. So I just want to highlight that it's not changing everything all at once. It could be as simple as a half an hour, right? Just that you can count on it. So Clarissa, tell me, what's something that people don't know about you? Like you said, you've been corporate for 20 something years. So for our listeners to get a better sense of where you're coming from, what should they know about you?
Well, they should know that I'm very passionate about women's issues, and particularly about women in the developing world. That's been part of my career, working globally. And seeing that there's an extra special need there to support those women, because actually we're battling cultural issues of as well as corporate issues. And I've seen some amazing women that I worked with in India who were in my team who could never make it to what was then called senior scientist grade. They had to stay at the lower grade because they were female. And for me, that's been a champion of actually pulling up these women. So that's something I'm very passionate about, that when we look at processes, policies, we take a global perspective and an understanding of those cultural differences so we can really support people in the right way.
Can I lean into that for a second? Tell me what it looks like for a female Indian scientist to be maxed out at a certain grade level. And when you work with them, what was the shift? How did they then step into the next role or get promoted or have a bigger impact? What was that like for you?
That was amazing for me when one of the women I worked with got promoted to manager level. And it was really this continuous saying, she's really good at her job. Yeah, I had to keep stressing how great she was, and finding a couple of men who were willing to listen within the Indian business. And then after time, I mean, it was a long time, but she did make that great. And that made a huge difference to her family, to the quality of their life, to the income that came into their family, for her two daughters to go on to really good quality universities. So the impact flowed far more than her getting the recognition and into her whole life.
Oh. So when you say I had to get a couple of men leaders to get on board, sounds as if your role was, helping educate and influence people's minds and beliefs and I guess almost paradigms that they're holding about what is and isn't in the workplace. Am I getting that correctly?
You are getting that right. And I think it was particularly within those sorts of roles where women didn't make it, because I could see that where women were pushing through in marketing roles, but they were not moving forward in some of the more technical roles. They were held by men, those managerial positions. And it really had to be a continuous promoting and showing her and letting her stand up and be there to be said, this woman is great at what she does. I mean, she would be almost irreplaceable. You wouldn't get a man who would have the depth of knowledge and commitment that this particular woman had.
How lucky is that company, that specific leader that you supported, the male allies that you found and helped? And thinking about that ripple effect, like that's one of the reasons I focus so much about women in tech. And when you look at the statistics right now, my heart just sinks about the ripple effect of, one amazing woman who was contributing awesomely, loves what she does, takes a lot of pride in her impact on the world, as well as helping her family. Your story is perfect. And they're dropping out because it's not sustainable, the world that we're in right now and what's happening. So I've been working with just helping them advocate for themselves and step into asking for what they want. Not necessarily because it's the only way to go, but to open the door about, like, can we be creative about how work gets done right now? So yeah, what you're doing is so important. This is why I wanted you to be here first. This is exactly it. Let's talk about burnout, right? That's one of the main reasons we're here. And so you and I've had conversations on your show about burnout, and I would love to open the door for you to describe what burnout feels like and what it looks like, so that the leaders that are listening in might have a better sense of what to look for and how it might show up. What's your experience with burnout, and how would you describe it?
I would describe it as a slow dying inside for the individual. It felt like all the joy that I'd had in my role was gone. It was finished. And there's a sort of sadness in that too. And leaders should be able to see that, because they should see a good, bright, capable person, man or woman, who's clearly delivered a lot. They're super capable, sort of pull away. And there is this almost physical and emotional disconnecting. It's like you can't manage it anymore. and a withdrawing. For me, I withdrew to a small corner office and I said, oh, no, I'm quite happy to be here. And they were like, oh, we want you to sit in the middle and be part of everything. And I was like, no, I'm just fine here. And it took a lot to summon up the energy to keep going. And I think that leaders see that and they should be asking, what's wrong? They should be asking, what's happening? Is there something going on there? Would you like to talk to me? Would you like to talk to me privately about this? Mm-hmm. But when we then put that down to just poor performance and it left to somebody's immediate line manager, that perpetuates until the person either burns out or they just leave. And then there's just a loss. And then people go, oh, well, we got rid of him or her. They were useless anyway. And that's the end of the dialogue. Yeah. And spotting this early on can do so much. Of course, it's organizationally centered. So then it has to reflect back onto a leader as to what am I doing? What kind of organization am I building here that's creating that for this person to react in that way?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to double click on that because what your example is in my own experience of burnout too. I was in the office with people and I too retreated and my joy was gone. And I too commandeered a conference room and hid out in it all day. So you couldn't see my face or read my energy. I also wore clothes the same more often because I was just too tired to think about what to wear. And I would call into meetings a lot so I wouldn't have to physically be present so I could take whatever energy I had left to be on these calls. So I'm totally tracking with you on this because my experience was very similar. What I think is more complicated right now is this world of Zoom and the fact that we are not together and people burning out. And I'm wondering, have you been able to use your experience or spidey sense in working with your clients and, your network of amazing people? Anything to look at that you would tell leaders today, pay attention to this. I know you're on Zoom, but here are still some telltale signs, even though you're not in the office together.
Yeah, I mean, specifically, I haven't, but you're making me think here spontaneously.
Yeah.
Do people show up for the Zoom meeting? Are they hiding their face on the Zoom meeting? Are they not contributing in the Zoom meeting? Because it's all very capable for us to sit here and be present and then say absolutely nothing through that meeting. Mm-hmm. And we need leaders to know how many Zoom meetings is the person sitting on. So we need to be talking to them about, how many Zoom meetings are you actually having each day? Because Zoom is tiring in a different way. Any of us that work a lot online know that sitting online for hour after hour after hour, and that needs to come from leaders to say, look, we have to have a couple in the morning or maybe a couple in the afternoon. We cannot ask people to sit all day in meetings. We wouldn't ask them to sit in a meeting room like that. Exactly. So we have to reflect that back in the way that we do Zoom. Well, actually, I think there are companies where you go from meeting to meeting to meeting.
But at least
I've worked in one.
Yes. You might walk to the restroom at least, and have a moment. Yeah. I agree. I think one thing I'll add to that I've noticed, and I'm actually talking to one of my exec clients last week, and he has someone that he is aware is having conversations around divorce. And this is very rampant right now, right? Mm-hmm. And people are struggling. And his question to me was, what's appropriate to talk about? Like, I don't want to overstep. I also want to open the door for what's necessary. And boy, did I get on my soapbox. I was like, what's not appropriate is ignoring it. What is inappropriate is knowing this and doing nothing. So let's talk about your comfort level. And then I had a whole conversation around how can you open the door without overstepping? And what we really basically said is, you're valuable. I know this is going on for you, and I can imagine the tremendous toll it's taken on you. Let's take a look at what's on your plate right now and have a conversation about what's critical, what we can delegate or perhaps hold off on. And then let's figure out what's necessary for you. Because one of the things he recognized was she's going to cope through work. Don't we all know this one?
Oh, yes.
I said, well, coping through work short term.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Right. And let me tell you something, what that looks like, that's burnout. So you have I feel, let me speak for myself. You have a moral obligation as a good human being on this planet to not allow coping through work to where it goes to burnout. Yes, if there's an exciting project and she's great for it and it's timely, put it on the priority list, but don't let her abuse her own mental health around just coping through work, right? Go for a walk, call a girlfriend, take a nap. I don't know, but coping through work, if you will, was one of my major signs of burnout. So I was thinking, in Zoom land, maybe it's people that are asking for more or always saying yes to things too. Yeah. Maybe not so like, yay, pick me, right? Because when you're burning out, your energy's low, but you're not pushing back. You're not saying no. They're not negotiating like they used to. And I feel like maybe their spark isn't there anymore. So if you're on Zoom and you're having the conversation, but their energy is different, I'm like, you kind of have to really start to read into tone of voice and eye contact and, proactiveness versus, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but what I want to say is just if the person used to be very proactive and they're not, that might be a sign. So you get to be a detective now. Leaders, here's your new job. You are now a detective.
Yeah, you need to have, like you said, your spidey sense out. Yeah. Is this person behaving differently? Are things not, they just don't feel right. And I think that's where leaders have gut instinct. Use it. We know we're taught to use heads, problem solving, goal setting, brainstorming, wonderful, but we've got to let our gut instinct. And I think if you know the person, and tune in, just get a sense that you're right, they're not quite showing up or they're not as energetic. Whatever it is, it's a sign that they're struggling in some way. And we don't know always what that is, because people can keep their private lives, very private.
Yep. Yeah. And that's why I loved when I was talking to this leader, like, have a conversation about priorities and workload. You can talk about that. You don't have to say, well, I know you're going through divorce and that might be really hard. Do you need anything? No. Keep it at work. Say, I know you have some external things going on in life, like we all do. Let's take a look at what's going on, right? What do you need to get done? And do you feel supported to get it all done? And he was like, that was easy. I'm like, well, that's yes, right. But people get really nervous and what shouldn't say? And is it going to be am I getting too much into the personal stuff? And I believe you can say, I care about you. You are very important to this team. I enjoy working with you. And either this is what I'm seeing, or let's take a look at your priorities and make sure you're being set up for success. Like, who wouldn't want to hear that?
Everybody would want to hear that, because they're really straightforward things. And any leader that's worth their salt can say those things, because that's not hard to do, but it shows a lot of empathy for the person. And it allows the person space to open up. Then they might want to say, well, I'm really struggling with my divorce, about that. And then they may feel that, but then the leader has to also be in a space to say, can we offer you some support? And good organizations should have that. If you need someone to talk to, can we arrange that for you as well, so that there is that backup? Because I believe that many people are going to need more professional mental health support at this time than I think organizations have factored in for in the normal way.
100% agree with you. So tell me, okay, so we've talked about what burnout feels like. We've had a couple examples. In your own experience, whether it's yourself or the clients you work with, what's the first step to take? So let's just say the clarity comes, oh yeah, I'm not myself. I might be burning out. Okay, yeah, that's burnout, because there's enough checklists on the internet to figure it out pretty quickly. What is your guidance for people on the first, even if it's a micro step to take to shift from staying stuck in burnout to getting unstuck and back to the path of joy and zest and, energized experience of this beautiful life we have?
I think sometimes we have to press a bit of a pause. We really have to press pause for a moment, because an awful lot of burnout, of course, is organizational factors, but it's the fact that we have poor boundaries too. So a lot of people have overstepped their boundaries. They're saying yes when they'd like to say no, and carrying on a lot longer. And women, I'm afraid, are worse than this out there. If you're listening to this, we put up with stuff where a man would walk and say, no, I'll take the risk and quit this. And we tend to think that we have to keep on going till we're crashed and burnt out. But pressing pause here and looking at your priorities in life. What are your values in life? Because burnout often comes from a mismatch between our values as well and where we are. So are you really clear about what's important to you? And is that coming into your life? Because then we can start to get to the root cause of what's creating the way we feel and ask ourselves, can I change any of that? Even if it's, as you said, it's a small step. It might be having to say to someone at home, not always at work, can you help me? I need you to do more here. Pick up the slack a bit more because I'm not coping very well. And of course, those are the things we can say at work too. Small steps to reprioritizing where we are. Maybe it's not saying, yes, I'll do this. You're saying, actually, no, I don't have the capacity to do this right now, but I might be able to do it next week or next month. Or no, I don't have any more space. You'll have to find someone else to do it. Mm-hmm. And they're hard things for people to do because it says it's easy to say that, but boy, is it hard to do it.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah. Pause. So what I heard you say loud and clear is press pause. And what I knew for myself, I couldn't figure out what pause looked like. So my burnout story ended up, taking a medical leave, right? I was in the emergency room, thought I was having a heart attack. Turns out I was having an allergic reaction to antibiotics because I kept getting bronchitis because I didn't pause, right? I never really healed. So the pressing pause, I really want to give some people, I want to give leaders and employees, whoever's listening right now, what does pause look like? Because once I realized, I feel like I took a drastic pause, right? I was so far down. I'm in the emergency room. So here comes the medical leave, right?
Yeah.
What would a pause look like when you don't go as far as I did? Like if I was to do it again and my friend Clarissa looked me in the eye and said, Lisa, I think you're not yourself. I think you're burning out. Why don't you press pause? What could someone do even this weekend to pause? What does that look like?
Maybe they need to say, I need an hour for myself. It could be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be, and we hope it's never the emergency room or we actually just crash. And I mean, I know that when I crashed like you did, it took me months to get back on my feet as a kind of paralysis. And no one needs to come there. But I think if you're feeling that way, maybe you need Sunday afternoon off for yourself. And if you live with other people, you just say, I need space. You take yourself off to somewhere nice in nature and you just stop. Just stop in here, turn off the phone, leave the phone at home if you can, but give yourself some mental space.
Yeah. Yeah. What I learned for myself was a hot bath was my pause too. Once my daughter went to bed and I would look at my husband and say, I totally want to connect with you. I need to connect with myself first. And he would look at me like, what does that mean? And I would just go off and take my bath and come back. And to just have quiet. I feel like right now, pause could even just be quiet. There's so much interruptions and things going on that a pause could be quiet. A pause could also be where my head's going right now when we're talking about it is look at your schedule. What meeting do you really not have to be in? Yeah. I mean, imagine that you could just ask for the notes or ask someone else on your team to go and report, give them the visibility opportunity or have the conversation with your leadership team. Like, everybody, we're going to take a pause. I know a lot of companies are giving election day off, not only to vote, but I'm like, there's an opportunity for pause.
Exactly.
In the United States, that's coming up, right? There's a pause. So yeah, I love this concept of allowing people to be creative with what that pause is.
And as you said, can I schedule meetings I don't need to be on? Then if I don't need to be here, I'm not going to be here. Well, what about the emails that you don't need to be CC'd on?
Oh my God. Talk about a pause, right? Yeah. You're even filtering them. So they're not one of the things of pause is turn off all your notifications.
Oh yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh. Imagine ding, 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 bing, bing, all that stuff too. Yeah.
And do you have some grading system for your emails? And I'll tell the story, Nelly's that I worked with someone and this person had 600 unread emails. And I said, why don't you just delete all of the ones except for the last 2 weeks? He goes, you can't do that. I said, you can. I said, if they're important, somebody will send you that mail again.
Exactly.
And he couldn't do it. And I mean, I understand that he did actually burn out and leave the company after me. But this was this continual never getting on top of stuff that eventually got on top of him.
Yeah. I always talk about the never always on, never good enough next innovation. That's how leaders in tech run their lives. It's like, no, no, that's cool for your next tape out or the next product release, but that doesn't mean that's how you need to live your life. Right. So let's talk about work-life balance. So I am famous for saying balance is bullshit. I really believe it. And sometimes I'll say BS if I'm in the right space and I'm not going to drop my language. But that doesn't mean you have to agree with me, Clarissa. I'm super curious.
No,
What's your vision, your definition? Is there such a thing as work-life balance? Where do you
no,
where
it's
do you get
BS. It's BS.
that?
It's total BS, I promise you.
Yeah, yeah.
Because life isn't like that. It's all life. It's because sometimes work is the number one thing. There can be a time when you're deep in a project, you know, like when I wrote my PhD, I mean, that was my life. It was my work, but it was my life. Or you're in this project and you're loving it and your thoughts are all about work and they're incredibly creative. Why wouldn't you go for that
Yeah.
and
Yep.
accept that? And then there are other times when your family, your whatever, your personal self needs to be front and center. And it's knowing that life is fluid,
Mhm.
and it's not allowing to get to either extremes or you find up you're in the messy middle of it all, but it's understanding that everything in life changes. And so this balance idea, I think, creates more tension for people. People then think that they're supposed to somehow equal hours and this sort of thing, and it's never like that. It just isn't.
I I just had a flashback when you were saying that. When I was sitting, tell me if you've ever had this experience, because I'm sure you have. I'm sitting in an executive roundtable and we're talking about women and tech. And why can't, what about this pipeline and how are we going to get more women in tech and why do they leave? And it's so relevant for right now. So this download just came to me. So I'm just going to run with it.
Yep.
I was the only woman on the executive roundtable. And at that time, my daughter was probably 18 months old. So it was very fresh for me being a working mom, first time parent in tech, right? Now, I'm not an engineer, but I worked with the engineers my entire career. And I raised my hand and I said, well, you gotta be flexible with your expectations and co-create the optimal experience for these women, right? And I said it goes back to this balance bullshit. I was with a group of men, so they kept talking about bullshit, and I said the reality is there is no balance. And when you're new to being a mom, all those brain cells, like all that's getting shoved there, right? Focus there. It's like your blood flow, and then you're not sleeping, and then people expect you to come back and be your same self. You're not. You're never going to be the person you were, and that doesn't mean you're less than. It means you're different. And women that are parents have amazing multitasking skills, and then you buy into this balance thing, and it's just a recipe for burnout. And so on this exec roundtable, they said, well, thank you for your input. We don't think that's right. Like,
Are you women?
I wish I had the courage at that time in my career to say, is there anyone else at this table who has a uterus and has given birth? That's what I want to know. And then tell me what I'm saying. It was incredible to me. So leaders in your organizations, don't discount the truth telling by the women doing the work when they tell you what's needed. At least say thank you for your opinion. What ideas do you have? But to tell me I'm wrong when I'm living it, like, oh, talk about waking me up, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about balance and you think about this, one thing that complicates it that I'd love your opinion on, because I know this is a passion specialty for you, is menopause. And so when you look at these women leaders who are in this, this second wave, and the children are older and their bodies are changing, and they're like, yes, my kids are in college and I'm doing my thing and I can't wait to be all in at work and do it differently and even give more than I have for a while. And here comes menopause. Now, I went into early onset menopause. I think my daughter was 4. And so I was just like, it's got to just be other things. It can't possibly be menopause. But let me tell you, talk about a roller coaster and an identity crisis for me. When we're looking at everything going on, and there's leaders here listening, and maybe the female leader who's in menopause and doesn't know it, how can you distinguish, or how do you dissect the symptoms and experience of menopause, and then looking at the, stages of burnout, and then leading in tech? I mean, all of this seems to be such the puzzle. And I think you're the perfect person to help our listeners figure out, not only for themselves what's going on, but also what might be happening in their organization. And I want to say, if you're not 50, you still could be in menopause. So let's get really clear about perimenopause and the whole process, because I didn't want anyone to know. Once I knew, I didn't want to get labeled as old and, no good anymore. It was a whole thing. So I'm gonna
you've said it. You've said it there. That's the first thing for women leaders, is this sense of maybe not wanting to tell other people because of this perception that suddenly we're old and we're not capable.
Mm-hmm.
And that, for me, I think is the most difficult thing for women leaders, because we don't want some of the suggestions that are put out there. Like, please have a fan on your desk and this sort of thing. I mean, that's just picking women out and putting a label across the head and say, hello, meet me, I'm in menopause. Women leaders in particular don't want that.
Yep.
But what we need is understanding and flexibility. And I think that's part of it, is understanding that this is something that can happen at this time. And you can be anywhere. To be honest, you can be anywhere from 40 onwards.
Mm-hmm. Well, I figured that out later in life, but yeah, I was like, can't possibly. So yes, if you're 40 and onwards, lean into this one, because it's real, right?
It's real, right? And you'll notice it yourself. So what I would be saying, there's a whole series of messages for women about getting more aware of themselves, their own bodies, getting the support they need. In organizations, it's a lot about not jumping to conclusions if a woman appears to be looking like she's struggling. So there's a lot of that kind of conclusion, which isn't that she's in menopause. It's usually that she's rubbish at a job or something like that. Yeah. But this slows us down. So it's the same as having a mother come back with a new baby. Can we give flexibility and space? Can we say, maybe I'm not going to pile on the extra work on this woman? And the recognition that menopause doesn't last forever. For most women, it's 4 or 5 years, something like that. This might be a period when we don't expect this person to be pushed up the ladder to the top. Why do women have to become senior leaders when they're 45? Can't we allow that at 50? We'd be saying men are wonderful. I mean, you're going to elect a president that's 70, and we don't turn a hair. If a woman came, she was 70, she needs to be put out to pasture.
Exactly.
That mindset, how can I support this woman at this time so that when it's over and she's got all that zest back, then, those spaces, that room for promotion is still there if that's what she wants. The room for the bigger projects is there. We're going to work to where 65 to 70, that's 20 years post-menopause maybe being over. So there's a little bit of flexibility and allowing, I think, that needs to come in organizations. And I don't think we need to have deep conversations unless a person wants to. We need understanding. There's a big difference between understanding and needing to talk the nitty-gritty. I don't expect any man to want to talk the nitty-gritty except to his own wife. Understanding what's happening. And I would say understanding that a lot of the symptoms that affect women in menopause are mental. Those are the ones that rock women. It's the anxiety, the brain fog, the mood swings, and the fact that we're fatigued and we're not sleeping very well that are impacting them. Hot flashes, they're irritating. They can, for some women, be debilitating. The fact that we've gained a few kilos, we can eventually do something about that. But don't be dragged down those sort of stereotypical messages, because it's mental health. And if there's extra pressure and burnout, women are going to feel that even more in this age group.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm at church right now. I just want to go, amen, sister. So I want to double click on something that I think is so important for any leader listening right now. What I'm seeing in tech is this easy decision, which I don't agree with, which is older workers make more. So package them out and go get some young peeps that'll work harder, more stamina, less money, blah, 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 right? So if you're making the decision just on employee costs, you will get some women in menopause, right? Like that's just reality. And that's not even like at 50. We're talking, if you're talking 40.
Yeah.
And I can tell you for me, going through it, what I'll call early through my own lens, right? The hot flashes got to me. My glasses fogged up, but guess what? They're fogging up with a mask now too, right?
Right.
The lack of sleep, I thought it was because my kid was little. You know what I mean? Like I thought it, so all of this can be confused for other things, I guess is my point. I did have a fan at my desk, and my lovely husband snuck in on the weekend and put one under my desk and affixed it so I could pull it out and aim it up so I could still cool off, but it wouldn't be on my desk because I didn't want to get labeled. Like that's real. So for everyone that's going through it on Zoom right now, there's ways you can, I'll say, hide it, if you will, and feel a little bit more confident right now. So here's a gift. Here's a gift for people in menopause. You can do this around, right? If your glasses fog up, you got your mask on. However, with all that lightness, the heavy part, the thing I really want to highlight is this decision to manage your budget just purely on pay grade and salaries, because the reality is ageism is real.
Oh yeah, totally and utterly. And I'd say the gender ageism intersection is, quite frankly, shocking all around the world. So there is no discrimination between the US or Europe. It is a universal cultural thing that says women get to a certain age, they're incompetent, they should be sort of pushed out of the workplace. And you see, that's a little different in Asia, where there's a revering of older women, and we keep that older wisdom. But we've lost that in our very patriarchal society. It's sort of something that happened in the 40s and 50s, and it seems to have just carried on, that we don't respect older women. But I'm telling you, women leaders make tremendous leaders when they are a bit older. We see that companies that have women at the helm, guys, they make more profit. That's fact. It's from me. Those facts are backed up.
Yes, I'm like, yes, they make more profit. Hello, let's say the profit word again.
Profit. Women leaders make more profitable companies.
There's one for you.
Women leaders mentor younger women. So if we have very good younger women, you tend to find that they get a mentor who's a woman who moves them up. And if your company really cares about culture and diversity, then you'll find that women leaders make great champions for that. So at this time, when I think those things are super important, not just gender, but diversity, whether that's ethnic diversity or sexual orientation diversity, you want to move that along, a woman leader is your absolute best bet. So, that there are some real reasons why you shouldn't want to lose women leaders. And they tend to be older women who often are in and around menopause. So make a flexibility, find a way to keep them, because your business is going to grow because of them.
Yes, again, amen, sister. What I want to bookend that with is, let's say you're a leader and you're just worried about, output, and you're thinking, well, she's slower or she's taking more time off, like whatever. Okay. Redefine the job. It doesn't mean get rid of the leader. Like, go look at the strengths, see where she can have the biggest impact for your business, put her in an advisory role, have her mentor the junior people you're bringing on, figure out a way to leverage her gifts and her talents and her contribution. And you want to see loyalty and impact? Watch that happen.
Yeah.
Watch that happen. Right.
Create, as you said, advisory roles or consultancy roles where she's the consultant, but she only consults for your business.
Imagine
creative ways to do this and not to lose talent and experience. I mean, you can't hire that back in a younger person, because it's come from being there and working through it.
Yeah. I think of like the complicated sales processes that I coach people on and all the institutional knowledge. And I think about, let's say there's a senior female sales leader and they're looking at pay and they're thinking, okay, I better go, and if she doesn't make her number, it's really easy in sales to be like, you're out. And instead, what would that look like to have her be the advisor to all the onboarding processes for the sales team, or looking at the sales processes, or helping in other ways, and, seeing what she's really lit up about, or really debriefing the entire customer support team about that customer. Like, there's so much there. I just want to say, and I want to scream it at the rooftops, and I get very passionate. I have fists going on right now. Listen, people, leverage the knowledge, be flexible and figure it out. And I'm going to say that whether the woman's in menopause, we're talking about your brand new employee, what's going on in the world right now, leaders need to be flexible. That's the bottom. I mean, I guess that's what we should call this podcast today. Flexibility is key. I don't know, but that is the pull through of what we've said today. Is that right?
It is. Absolutely. That I think that the only way we're going to get through this pandemic, find new ways that are work-life balance and not that BS, and actually keep, retain, grow, and nurture leaders, and particular female leaders, is flexibility in this new world. We're not going to do it by doing what we did before, because it won't work. And I don't think it'll work with a younger generation either, whether they're male or female, because they won't put up with it. They won't stay.
They will not. I love this new generation being like, peace out. It's not for me. And I'm thinking, wow, such courage and bravery. You know, some people are like, oh, they're clueless and they haven't paid their dues. I'm like, no, I think they're brave. Right. And they have real clarity on what's important to them. Like, I celebrate that.
Yeah.
Okay. I could talk to you for 17 hours, Clarissa, but I want to do a couple of laser questions for you, because one of my goals is to compile a playlist for anyone who's looking to reboot, right? And I want to do a playlist in a couple of ways. One is song-based, but another playlist is to play with core desired feelings. And so, as you know, what I bring into my work always is, how do you want to feel and what are you doing to feel that way? So 2 questions for you. The first one is, what are your core desired feelings? Let's build our playlist, and we'll start with yours.
My core feelings, I think one for me is always that I feel trust. Trust is a really core feeling for me, that I trust a person, whether that person's in my private life or whether that's a person that I'm working with, because that is something that lets you build. You've got a foundation to build on. So that for me is one of my absolute core feelings. And you get that sense quite quickly. Don't trust somebody, you're not going to let that person near you. It's a gut instinct feeling for me.
Love it. Yeah. Mine is connection. And that's why I wanted to do this with you, right? So, and I feel like trust goes with connection. So we'll add that to the playlist today, trust and connection. And then my other song, what's your go-to song to lift your energy or to feel happy? Is there a song? What's the song for you that when you don't care what's going on, that song comes on and all of a sudden your shoulders are moving, or there's just something for you, because I want to build this playlist for our listeners.
The people are going to laugh when they hear this, because my husband is a great country fan from all the years he lived in the States, and he loves this Streets of Bakersfield. I think it's some sort of California song. It's Buck Owens. He loves it and he plays it and we love it. I mean, I know that it's actually, has a stronger meaning behind it. You don't know me because you don't like me, but the music is really like gets you going. He plays it and we all
oh, I love it. It's Buck Owens. You don't know me. Is that what it's called?
I think it's called The Streets of Bakersfield. He'll have to tell.
Oh, I'm so excited.
It's hilarious. It's a real California country sound,
Here's what I want people listening to pay attention to. Even me asking you about the song, look where your energy went. So that's one of the reasons I want to do this is I feel like if you're looking to reboot your life and you're listening into this and you want to make your career be rewarding, and you as a leader, you want your business to thrive, I am a believer that music has a role. And so just as I'm building the playlist for our listeners, you might build a playlist for your team, or even remind your employee, just ask the question and watch, just like Clarissa just did, the sheer delight in the song that shows up. So, there's your next team meeting icebreaker question for you listeners, right? Oh, Clarissa, I'm so grateful for the work you do. I'm grateful for the connection we have through our mutual friend, Devora, who introduced us. I watch you on LinkedIn. I follow you everywhere I can. What you're doing is so important. So let's close out with, how can the listeners learn more about the work you do and find you, in the different channels where you show up? Tell us how to find you.
Well, if you want to know what I talk about and write about, then do go to LinkedIn, because that's my go-to social media channel. And I post at least 5 times a week, And now you've seen that I've found LinkedIn stories. I'm a little bit there as well. If you want to read more about my work or see the work I actually do, go to my website, which is my name, ClarissaKristjansson.com. And those are the two best places to find me. And then, of course, my podcast, Thriving Through Menopause. If you are a woman in midlife and you want to hear no holes barred conversations, because there aren't many we don't dare to go, then do go and listen and connect with me. If you want to have ideas and thoughts, I'd love to hear from you.
And are you open to speaking at conferences or being a guest speaker for any kind of wellness event at these corporations that are listening in? Because I think you'd be fab.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yes, I'm a very regular speaker, and I've been speaking a lot this year, actually. I've recently supported the British government last week. Wow. Yeah, I spoke to thousands of people there about positive mindset in menopause. And that's a lot of what I talk about, not so much the kind of nitty gritty medical part, but this whole importance of our beliefs and our behaviors, of how we change. So I speak in corporations, for bigger organizations, on a very regular basis.
Oh, I love it. Well, listen up, everyone listening in. You want to talk to Clarissa. I cannot begin to tell you how much of a favorite person in my network she is. She is someone that just keeps it real. You know, she may not say balance is bullshit like I do. She'll give you the BS version because she's quite proper that way. However, we pull truth bombs and they have F words in them. So who knows? So I think it might be time for our truth bomb, Clarissa. Shall we pull one?
Oh, yes. That's cool.
So for all the listeners out there, one of the things that I do in the trainings and the coachings is I have these amazing cards called truth bombs. And it's a reflection card. And so I think back to when Clarissa said, take a pause, you might pull a truth bomb and see what it has to say. So let's do this. So I have our deck. Let me pull it up for you. And then I'll put my finger, Clarissa, and you tell me when, and then we'll let the listeners experience it real time with us.
Okay, when?
Okay, now do you want the one here or the one here?
No, the one you got, the first one. Yeah, let's see what that is. I'm excited.
All right. So Clarissa, I'm going to let you see it.
Oh, yeah. What a nice thing to say.
Right. Okay. So what Clarissa pulled, and for all you listeners, I think there's a message here for you too. The card says all art involves risk. So I'm curious, Clarissa, anything that's showing up for you as you listen to that message?
You know, take a risk on the people you've taken into your business. Take a risk on how good they are. You didn't employ them because you thought they were rubbish. You took them on because you thought they had something special to give. Take a risk on them. Trust them, step out, let them have the flexibility that they need. Take that risk. It'll be rewarded.
Oh, I wish I could fill in this card and I would put right after all leadership art involves risk. That's exactly what you're saying, isn't it? Like, take the risk and lean into the people, be creative and flexible. All leadership art involves risk. I love it. What a great way to finish today.
No.
I love it.
Love that.
All right, everybody, check out Clarissa. You don't want to miss out on her. Thank you for listening in. And until we talk next time, take that pause, be good to yourself, and know that we're rooting for you.